So welcome to the first edition of Right Aligned Europe. We are talking to creators from all over the continent about their stories, how they got to be what they're doing. I'm Owen McGubbins, and I am here speaking to Berlin-based brand design and art director, Carla Pella.
Hey.
So Carla, you describe yourself as a designer who's got an affliction for colour and controversy, and not for everybody. So can you tell us a bit about how you got to be a designer who can confidently describe herself as not for everyone?
Yeah, I guess it's been a bit of a game of elimination, as I've said. I started off in the earlier stages of my career, lucky enough to sort of get a job whilst I was studying, which gave me a lot of experience, but I was sort of shoved into areas that I very quickly learned that I wasn't for, such as, automotive advertising or corporate design, like corporate branding for law advisors, tax advisors, accountants, tech startups. And yeah, I very quickly realized that I was getting a lot of pushback to the point where I even questioned whether I was even a designer. It's like, am I meant to be a designer? Like, it doesn't feel like I am. But that sort of lit a fire under my ass. I got naturally a little bit angry about it. And then I sort of went freelance, and I tried to attract brands that were within this sort of more lifestyle industry, where you really need to have a strong voice and you need to be a little bit bolder and more risky to even have a presence and to keep up, because the market's often so saturated. I guess the controversy part, I have a strong belief that brands need to have opinions. And naturally, when you have a strong opinion, people are going to love you or hate you for it. You're probably going to piss some people off. But if you tailor that strong opinion towards your audience, then they're going to follow you relentlessly, and the rest don't matter so much. So I think there's often, I guess, maybe some sort of pressure to sort of appease and not sort of be too abrasive within branding. But I have a strong belief that if you really niche hard towards your audience, you're probably going to, alienate people who aren't your audience, but you're going to resonate really strongly with your audience.
I absolutely love that. Quite a few of the things that you said there. So the being angry about this kind of thing. This is something that I've actually found much later in my career, but kept kept low. Yeah. My anger only comes out in certain situations. So what was it that gave you the confidence to actually act on that?
I mean, I think, as I said, coming from this really stale world, it was sort of like, I either need to give this a go or I probably need to change career paths. And I think once I started working with different types of brands and I realized that they were actually resonating with what I wanted, and I started sort of calling myself not for everyone, people really liked that. Certain people really liked that. It often, alienated the right kinds of people. Like, they didn't come towards me, and I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
But I guess I think I've forgotten the question.
So it's like, what gave you the confidence to act on that anger and actually go on and do that kind of work?
Yeah, I think it also is a bit of a personality thing. I guess I have a passion for this sort of idea of controversy, and sort of finding the right people, the right brands, and the passion for finding the right brands just came from, I guess, a real sense of inadequacy with these other sort of brands. Does that make any sense?
For sure. So was it an inadequacy as in these brands were just rubbish, or an inadequacy is your work didn't line up with what it is that they were looking for?
More so that my work didn't align with what they were looking for. I essentially felt like a round peg in a square hole.
Yeah.
I guess also by nature, my personality, I do like to have strong opinions, and I definitely did want to have an impact in branding. I just knew that I would have to tailor that towards certain types of brands for it to work. If that made sense. And yeah, I guess I have a lot of opinions myself, and I like brands to have opinions. So I definitely wanted to channel this into something, and I think you can channel that into branding quite well if it's done the right way. And so, yeah, I guess I feel like I've half answered your question there a little bit. But
so when you talk about like brands having opinions, is it that the brands have the people that you are in the brands already have opinions, or is it that you feel that the branding you create gives them that?
Yeah, I think it's more that sometimes the work that I do can give them that. Like obviously this sort of opinion style would sort of come through tone of voice.
Yeah.
Like I really like brands that use like a really strong tone of voice that would probably alienate the people who aren't the audience.
Yeah.
But would really strongly resonate with the audience themselves. And yeah.
Do you ever find that you'd create something that has like this really powerful voice, but then actually when you see the company using the brand, it kind of just dies away, like it's diluted? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I think that's when, you know, like a really strong style guide and, you know, communication style guide comes into play, where you really have to sort of, because naturally I think brand founders, I mean, I'm not speaking for all, some of them are more brave than others, but it is their baby at the end of the day, and they do want to play it safe sometimes. But if you sort of build trust with them and then give them like a little like handbook to use with a whole bunch of different you know, headlines and a really strong tone of voice that they can carry through and keep doing on their own, then I think it can stay intact. Obviously it does play into the cultural landscape around it, so it might need a shift over time a little bit. And I think there's more and more brands who are trying to be quite strong with their tone of voice.
Yeah.
So maybe it needs to be refined over time. But I think if you set it up in the right way with like a really strong style guide, both visual and communication, and the risk for dilution, let's say, it comes down a little bit. Yeah.
So with other people who are trying to do a similar kind of thing to you, who are trying to like give like brands a strong voice, is there any brands that you see nowadays where it's like it feels like they're trying to have this, they're trying to be like in your face and trying to have this strong opinion, but actually it's very, very clear that it's just a show, it's like a marketing tactic?
100%. Yeah, 100%. I think there's definitely a trend now. I mean, in the last couple of years especially, maybe not, because I think this stuff moves quite quickly. There's definitely, I think, people and brands feel the need to have this sort of strong opinion, especially because of the branding landscape we're in with, you know, this Gen Zs and the millennials, maybe more so the Gen Zs, who are very opinionated. Like they will turn their nose up at something they believe in. So there is definitely a pressure from brands to align with these like younger audiences who are very opinionated and passionate. So definitely, I think I do see brands where I'm like, I don't actually think. I think you're doing this because you feel like you need to, whether you actually believe in what you're saying or not.
Yeah, I think with these kinds of things, like definitely the bigger organizations, you see it is very much, it's like a marketing tactic, and it feels like they've sat around a committee table and gone, let's do this.
Yeah.
So with that kind of thing in mind, to say, so you when you're doing brand design, is it generally you as an individual, or are you like working within a team you're leading a team of designers, or how does it tend to work with you?
So I do a mixture of independent work and bookings with bigger agencies, like agencies that you would have had on the show as well, show interview. But I don't have like I think it's definitely something I want to have in the future, like a concrete team of more employees. But I do work with a bunch of contractors because at the end of the day, I do believe, whilst I like to have control over the direction of things, I think it's naive to think that one brain can come up with like something amazing sometimes. So I do work with contractors to sort of add their 2 cents, or they often make the concepts and the directions even stronger. So I work with contractors to sort of get new perspectives or a second point of view or third point of view. And in the future, I'd like to build that into more of a studio, let's say, with a team that's my own.
Because my thought with that question is, when you think of the bigger organizations who sit around the conference table and like think, oh, we need to go in this direction, it's very much like designed by committee. So with the kind of work that you're doing, is it like you have a vision and then it's enhanced by others?
Yeah, I'd say so. I have a bit, like, sometimes I still do projects alone, but I think, as I said, I like to come up with the vision, and then I like to work with contractors who can almost strengthen that. But I do have to work with the right kinds as well of contractors. And I think over time, I've worked with, startups, mid-grade, middle-sized brands, and I worked with like some really bigger brands. And I think the bigger the brand, often the harder it can be to sort of control the vision, because there's often like, excuse my French, but like 10 wankers in white suits who are like the gatekeepers you have to get past. And they're the ones who are a little bit more financially business minded, and like, no, we just want to, they have this sort of, risk assessment like machine built into their heads that you have to sort of bypass a little bit.
I think that was very, very eloquent French, very appropriate. So I see that's interesting. So with that in mind, so obviously there's lots of factors. The bigger you get, the organizations have lots of factors that they need to fulfill when we're doing a branding project. So what is it? How do you know a project's successful, like from your own point of view?
It's a good question. I mean, I'm not someone who will sort of sit around analyze stats, but you can get a feel for the success of a branding outcome through the engagement. Like, often I like brands that sort of create that, maybe movements is a big word, but sort of like push the envelope further, if that makes sense. So I've forgotten the question again.
It was that how do you decide if how do you know if a project's successful?
Yeah, so I guess with this movement thing in mind, like whether something starts going viral in a way, like, and I think that's a sign of success. But more so if you start seeing other brands trying to follow the pattern, then you're onto something. I think, and you've seen this trend in like tech brands especially, because they usually traditionally like to play a little bit safer. Have like the classic blue with a sans serif and like a really generic icon. And when you look at brands like Klarna, who's a tech brand, and Spotify and stuff like that have really they don't act like tech brands. I think they've sort of raised the bar a little bit, and now there's almost like a precedent set for other brands to sort of move into that area where they can be a little bit more colorful or a little bit more risque with their tone of voice and that sort of thing. I think that's a sign when you've created something that is quite impactful, when you start seeing other brands feel the pressure to step it up.
Nice. So when was the first time then that you created something that you start to see other people taking, say, influence from?
Oh, good question. I think I've recently started working more in this like CBD realm, which can be, I think it's a bit of a confused product sometimes because people just associate it with weed.
Yeah.
And I think if it's positioned in the right way, with the right tone of voice and the right sort of look and feel, then it can work. And I'm not saying that I was the pioneer of this, but I think I've worked on a few of them now, and I can see that there are more and more popping up that are sort of pushing the envelope further and further.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of like really big brands, I recently, or last year, worked on a brand Cora, which is a femcare brand.
Yeah.
Usually tampons and pads are pretty like horribly packaged and horribly branded, but I think that brand have and the design work we did along with Mother, like it wasn't just me, I was working with the whole team, has definitely raised the bar. And I wouldn't be surprised if more and more femcare brands start following the leader a little bit to sort of keep up, and sort of break out of this stale, I guess, what do you call it? The stay away that they used to do things. And I have noticed since that brand got released that there are more femcare brands that are really like pushing the boundaries. And on face value, if you look at these brands, you might not even think that they're a tampon brand or a femcare brand, or a shaver brand or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But I think there's going to be more and more brands that are going to keep doing that. And I have already noticed there's a few popped up that have felt the pressure to keep up.
Because I always think of, when it comes to femcare, I just think of the old brands. It's like the blue liquid when you see the adverts on TV, and it's like the blue liquid's poured on the pad, and it's like,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's not how periods work.
No. Yeah, there was this real like, hush hush sort of like,
yeah.
I guess sort of embarrassment, I don't know why, around it, because everyone has them.
Yeah.
It's a natural part of life. And I think that's something Cora did really well, was to sort of break down these feelings around periods and be like, they're fucking uncomfortable. Like, we're not going to lie about that,
Yeah.
And really broke out of this clinical world where you just see like ads with like a floating pad, and like feels clinical as all hell. So yeah.
I recently saw Einhorn have got now a brand of like sanitary products, and their packaging, it looks nothing like the old style. So I guess these are like this like second gen
exactly
like femcare products.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when I looked through your folio and that kind of thing, and there just seemed to be like a theme. So I don't know, do you do your own write-ups for the website? Yeah. I love your writing style.
Really?
But it's like, for sure. It's like super clear. Like you totally get the idea, you get the feel of like what's coming from. But it's like a couple of them, the way that you talk about them, they all seem to have like the same kind of feel. So you said about August, the beauty industry is a notoriously vicious and manipulative industry. And I read this and I'm like, it is. I get it.
It is. Yeah.
It's like the playful brand. There's nothing too whack, too bare, too strange for playful. And it seems that there's like a theme with the kind of projects that you choose. So how do you choose the projects that you work on? So beyond they're not tech companies boring.
Yeah. I think I like, if I see an opportunity for like patent breaking, let's say, I do like to work with those sort of brands. Like, for example, August, this was during sort of COVID times, just before like I think it was just as this self-care wellness movement was sort of hitting, because everyone was stuck inside and people really needed to start taking care of their mental health a little bit more. With that one, I saw an opportunity to sort of, play into that social tension and sort of shine a light on how, like, how cruel that industry can be and how it's just really playing off our insecurities. And I saw like a pattern that could be broken there. For example, and then maybe more of a recent project was, I'm getting more into alcohol branding, which I really love.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, for whatever reason, I think the gin market's really taken off. Like there's some really nice design in there. But there's some stuff like whiskey, which for whatever reason, it's very, and tequila as well. It's very sort of, it just feels very dated and old and has this sort of old school feel about it. But for me, I see there's a huge opportunity to sort of break through the mold, break the pattern and create something that is taking cues from other industries and applying it to that, just so they sort of appear different and kind of stand out from the crowd, essentially. So I think there's a common theme of me, getting an inquiry for a project, analyzing the sort of market that sits around it, and whether I feel like, okay, no, there's a really strong opportunity here to sort of do something really different. Then that sort of really fuels me.
Nice.
Yeah.
So
does that answer the question?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So do you tend to find that people come to you because of your style? And then do they want, like, give us a classic Carla palette, or are they looking for you to create something new for them?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I think initially they come to me for my style, but at the end of the day, because of the nature of the people I'm working with, because I'm so in branding, I work with the founders directly. And as I said before, it's their baby. That's what they've been working on for so long, and they do at the end of the day want a little bit of control. So I do find it funny sometimes when they come to me for my style and then I give them my style and they're like, no, let's pare it back, it's a bit too risky.
Yeah, not like that.
Yeah, not quite that far.
Yeah.
But at the same time, this not for everyone thing acts as a filter, like it does deter people. It deters the wrong people, which is great for me. But yeah, I have also had brands who have been like really had a lot of trust and seen what I've done with other brands and been like, no, we're coming to you for specifically this. We want your take. We trust you, and whilst we may feel uncomfortable along the way, like, and a little bit, have cold feet and stuff like that, it has worked out well, and they end up getting what they want. Yeah.
So I was going to make a generalization, but so I've thought, like, there's definitely been times where I've been like, I don't want to be too much myself because I don't want people to see that actually I think I'm shy. So has there been points where you're being yourself, it's caused challenges in your career, maybe like gaps in work, or there's periods where you've not got projects or things like this?
Yeah, I mean, luckily enough, I've not really had too many I don't know, empty periods where I haven't had work coming in. I think similarly to my opinion around, having opinions within branding, like I sort of treat myself as a brand in that sense. And because I've sort of niched quite hard into brands and people who are willing to take risks, it's actually worked in my favor. Like I haven't really had too much trouble finding work, which can be a big struggle for some other designers, I think. There are times where I feel like I have to tone back my personality a little bit, just to sort of on a client relations side of things, because I can be abrasive. And I will say it how it is. But at the end of the day, I'd rather say it how it is than let the brand go in the wrong direction and then they're unhappy and I'm unhappy and it's almost like I'd rather say this stuff up front.
Yeah.
And often because these brands I work with are working in such competitive markets, I do push them to, I guess, like push the envelope. Like you're working in such a crucially competitive market here that you're going to have to do something quite loud and different for people to even notice you and remember you. So yeah.
So have you ever walked away from a project then? Like halfway through?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I try not to, but it has happened before. I think this is sort of touching on what we spoke about before, when people, you know, sometimes brand founders, they come to me and they think they want something like based on what I've done in the past, but then when push comes to shove, they get cold feet. And I find that I don't want to be a yes man. And I'm not self-serving. Like obviously there's an artist within me that wants to create beautiful things, but at the end of the day, the audience is most important to me. And sometimes I think that, like, you know, I keep saying brand founders, but it can just be clients in general.
Yeah.
They do have design sensibilities of their own. And I have locked horns before with some founders where I've just said, you know, look, I don't think I'm the right designer for you. And maybe it's best we just go our separate ways here. And I'm happy to even recommend you to some other people. I try to avoid it, of course, because it's not a good look. But I'm also not going to yes man my way through a project, because I have done that in the past, and I end up with something that is so, you know, so you know, this meme of like it's like a meme of like a oil painting of Jesus, and then it goes through the client revisions and ends up being this distorted like thing at the end. And that's what I don't want, because then I'm, you know, then I can't put that anywhere. I don't really want to put my name against it. So yeah. Like,
I mean, okay, so this is a technical point, but like, so when it comes to that kind of thing, so one of the challenges we get is if you show a client multiple options, they go, okay, so we love this from option A and we love this from option C. Can you put them together?
No.
So do you give them multiple, or like, how do you do it?
Yeah, I try to give them multiple. I guess I like to start with strategy. And I think this is also just because of the sheer competitiveness of the market now, that strategy is more and more necessary.
Yeah,
because there's more brands to navigate around. But yeah, so I try to start with the strategy, give them like a direction, and then from there, give them 3 sort of mood board, just look and feel directions. Like I usually go with 3, sometimes 2, but usually 3. And then that sort of, once we have an agreement on that, on a general look and feel, then I'll go into the conceptual part and give them usually 2 different things. But I do have a strong rule of no hybrids. No hybrids, because these have been designed as 2 different concepts for a reason.
Yes.
You know, like, and yeah, clients love to sort of like mush things together based on their personal taste. But then it comes back to the strategy, where I start questioning them, like, are you designing this for you, or are you designing this for your audience?
Yes, I love that. I love that. Look on a client's face when you ask them that question, they're like, the audience.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. There's a selfish part of all of us that sort of wants to self-appease, but at the end of the day, with branding, like your brand's going to fail unless you're speaking to your audience.
Yeah.
And the strategy can help make the process a little bit less subjective. So when I do get pushback or questions on certain things, like, I've done this for this reason, because the audience thinks in this way. And with my no hybrids rule, you know, I'll then have to explain to them, you know, this concept addresses this problem in this way and speaks to the audience in this way. This concept, you know, addresses the problem this way, it speaks to the audience in this way. And if we start mixing this together, it's going to become a bit confused.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be as strong as it could be.
Oh, I absolutely love this. Yeah, it took me far too long in my career to get to that point. But yeah, like, yes,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I learned the hard way though, because I didn't do strategy, and I kept hitting this wall with clients where I was getting pushback and I couldn't quite, argue my way out of it, like, because it was so subjective. It's just well, you like purple and I like pink, and we're never going to come to an agreement with that. But once the strategy comes in, it's a little bit more fact orientated, or less subjective, more objective. So it's a little bit easier to I guess sell the concepts in that way. But I remember this was sort of earlier on when I really was feeling this sort of anger. I think it was coming from this corporate world, and I was like, I remember messaging on Instagram, like one of these like a much more experienced designer than I was at the time, and asking her, like, how do you navigate through this? Like, how do you bypass this pushback that you inevitably get from clients? And she said, it was quite a brutal message, but it was something I needed to hear. And she's like, this is your own doing. Like, you're not doing enough work at the start. Like, the more strategy you do, the more research you do, the easier it is to then sort of sway clients into the way that you want them to go. Which at the end of the day is what the audience needs. But it was a bit of a harsh learning lesson, but I'm really glad that I heard it, especially at a young age, because essentially I just needed to do more groundwork so that when the time comes, which it always comes, then I could navigate that a little bit better, and not just be the stubborn designer that was like, no, I believe this because I think it looks good, and take it or leave it. Yeah.
Oh, I've had that conversation so many times, and I had the same kind of like that when my stuff started to change. So do you think that then it's like a failing in like design education then, that we're not taught this, or we aren't taught it properly?
100%. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I didn't do a traditional bachelor's degree. I did a bit of more of a hands-on associate's degree, which, I mean, it's a great university. And if anyone's watching this, like, no shade at all. But I think like with design courses, they try and like teach you a lot within 2 years, which it's incredibly hard to go really deep into anything. I know branding is something we touched on, but strategy is not something we touched on at all. And it was really actually the second agency I was working at, which when I was about 21, that really taught me so much more about branding, so much more about strategy. That's where I really learned all this stuff from. So I think you learn so much more by working in the industry with real clients, with people around you who are much older, much more experienced. I think that's where I learned a lot of this stuff. Yeah.
So with the agencies that you worked with, were they very like encouraging of young designers? Did they try and help you develop?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, the older you get and the more experience you get, they expect you to come all guns blazing, which is fair enough. You've got a pretty high day rate, so you better perform. But but in my younger years, I was really lucky to, I mean, whilst this agency was doing styles of work that didn't suit me, I had a great creative director who really like nurtured me and taught me so much. And whilst I think he hired me more on potential than skills, he really put so much time and effort and patience into me, and he really helped me sort of flourish into someone who lives and breathes branding.
Amazing.
So yeah, definitely. And I don't think every agency would do that at all. Like I managed to land in an agency that was very encouraging of learning and self-development. And I had other designers around me who started in branding and ended up in UX, or people who were started in comms and then ended up in design. And it was just lucky that this agency was really nurturing and really took the time to sort of help you work out your strengths and then help foster that into something that you could move on into the next stage of your career with. Yeah.
So are you going to bring stuff from that experience to when you have your own team? Or how are you going to do that?
It's a good question. I think definitely, I was thinking about it the other day actually, and I was like, whilst I was looking for some other people to sort of contract, that I did want to have some upcomers that I could help mold a little bit.
Amazing.
And I think it's a common saying that the more experience someone has, often the more experience you have to undo sometimes. So if I was to hire people in the future, or more contractors, then I would definitely like to have the opportunity to help them and work out what their strengths are and mold them into what they want to be. Because I feel so blessed and lucky to have that experience myself, that I would feel like I'd not be doing my part if I didn't do the same. Because I don't know if I would be here where I am now without that experience.
Yes, I absolutely love that. It's that mix of give someone like a structure to work within and give them a push, but then help them develop the direction they want to go in.
Exactly. Yeah, but it's also a fine balance, because at the end of the day, people are working underneath your name, so you need to it is a balance. There's a balance there,
Quality control.
Yeah, I am quite protective of that, but I would be lying if I said that I would just hire some shit hot designer who I knew could do it really well, but I wouldn't have as much ability to help them as maybe someone younger and a little bit earlier on in their career.
Yeah. Awesome. I had just a story come to mind that was completely tangential, but I realized we've got a topic, so we're just going to carry on with it. So one of the ways that I came across you was through the collaborations that you've done. So how have you chosen the collaborations, the people that you've worked with, and how is that? I don't know. How interesting has it been? How have you enjoyed the work that you've created through them?
In terms of collaborations, you mean sort of agencies or individuals?
So so the Goal Girls is where I first came across you.
Oh yeah. It's interesting. I saw Goal Girls I noticed them when I was in Melbourne still, which is now almost 4 years ago.
Okay.
And I noticed that they had a real burning desire to sort of create movements around brands, and often for there was a lot of social good within it, with a bit of a feminine spin, let's say a feminist spin.
Okay.
So I was really attracted to that. Again, because they were a little bit controversial. They had no problems doing something that went a little bit against the grain, or that was very sort of polarizing. So I was really attracted to that. I guess with other people, such as, I think that theme can be applied to the other people that I've chosen to collaborate with. I can see the designers that want to play it safe, or the organizations that want to play it safe, and I steer clear. But when I see organizations like agencies or independent designers who, it's almost like they have a sense of they're quite brave. I like when I see that sort of personality type or like vision or motive, then that's something that I think I can work with. But yeah, as soon as I see sort of people like yes manning, and when I see brands get released and I question, I'm like, did you really come up with that, or did you just get pushed into a corner by the brand, like by the client? Yeah. So that's the sort of thing I look for, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, for sure. Is it something that you do quite a lot of, or is it like you tend to just focus on your own kind of work? Like this kind of collaborative with other creatives?
It's a bit of a mixture. Like sometimes I do just like to, especially with maybe more self-orchestrated projects, I like to do it myself. So I guess the artist within me again really likes to work on my own projects. I really love doing passion projects. It really like gives me the energy back. Sometimes when I work with certain clients, I just I feel so energyless, and like everything's just been sucked out of me by the end of it. And this sort of stuff can help me build myself back up again and feel have a joy for design again. I'm sorry, I sort of question. The question again. My brain just goes that way, and then I'm like, "What was the question again?"
I'm cool with that. It's like I've seen like there's certain things that you're like really enjoying, and you just go, and that's what I enjoy about like these kinds of chats. The way I described it, it's like having a chat at a party. You know, you find this point of connection, and then you just talk.
Yeah. Exactly.
But actually, one of the things I did want to ask you, you've just like touched on it there for yourself, is like, yeah, projects can take a lot out of you. So how do you keep yourself happy, like in work and again outside of design?
I think like I have to be really careful of burnout myself. I know I'm someone who can burn out quite quickly. It's probably because I put a lot of time, energy, and effort into the projects that I work on that I do feel myself burning out. When that happens, I usually will take a step back, even take a couple of weeks off. Outside of design, I like to go travel and stuff like that. I feel like that gives me a lot of inspiration again. But then within design, I really love doing my own passion projects. I like to just sort of create brands that may not actually ever hit the market, but it really gives me an opportunity to sort of just create what I want to create without having some client breathing down my neck telling me they don't like purple. and that really like it builds me back up again. And it's interesting you're saying that right now, because I think in the last sort of month, I sort of felt it coming on, and usually when I start getting a little bit jaded, and that's when I'm like, okay, that's the first sign.
Yes.
That's the first sign. Then my body gives way. I usually start getting really sick. Last year, it was actually to a whole nother level. I ended up in hospital with like really bad stomach problems, just because I'd just pushing myself too far, too long. And after that, I realized, okay, I need to take more regular breaks. So, and when I feel that coming on, I will either take a break, go for like even just a week, just get out of Berlin, put the laptop away, and just sort of like walk through the streets, get inspiration from like what I see. Also different cultures. I think because I work with brands from all over the world, it's important for me to sort of like see how different cultures act and like the human behavior within that, and sort of observe that, and that fuels me again, and I can sort of come back. But I think sometimes I'm a little bit more of an artist than a designer, because the passion projects really like fuel me back up again. Yeah, and it's ironic that sometimes these end up in my portfolio, and sometimes the work that I do on my own accord is more successful than the work I do with clients. And then they see the work that I do for my because I don't necessarily say that this is a passion project.
Yeah.
They see that and they're like, oh, we really want you to do something like this. And then when I do, they're like, well, how about we do it like this?
Oh,
it's
man.
a bit of a like catch-22 sometimes. It's just,
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
strange. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they want it until they have it, and then they're like, actually.
Yeah, let's just go back. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, this has been super, super fun to chat. Where can people find out more about you online?
I do have a I like to post every day on Instagram. So my Instagram page is probably the most regularly updated. I'm on LinkedIn because I have to be.
I feel that vibe. Yeah,
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah. I used to post more regularly, and I should post more regularly. So that's somewhere you can find me. But I also have a website, which is carlapellet.com, and my Instagram is also carla.pellet.
Sweet.
Yeah, so they're the two places that you'll probably find the most of me.
Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for the super, super insightful chat.
No worries.
Awesome.
I hope, I hope it was what you wanted.
It definitely was. And I believe you're going to be on a Right Aligned event later in the year. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think I have to check with Chris whether it got postponed or not. But there was one that I was meant to be on. I think it was around burnout, which I have a lot to say about.
Cool. So if you just want to catch Carla again, watch out for that. And I guess thanks for watching.